Sri Sathya Sai Kalpadruma, Day 7. Om Sri Sai Sarvabhishta-pradaya Namaha. Salutations to Sri Sai, who fulfills all our good desires and aspirations. Wherever in the world there are people with good thoughts, engaged in good work, Bhagavan Baba fulfills all their aspirations, irrespective of whether they are aware of Baba's name and form or not. Here is an example to illustrate this fact. Srimati Bharati Maiya of Ambika Niketan lives in Surat in Gujarat. Ever since her childhood, she felt intense love for Lord Krishna. After having spent 10 years continuously in worship of Krishna, the Lord blessed her with a darshan and guided her to commence worship of Shakti. Accordingly, she spent the next 10 years in worshipping Shakti. Pleased with her sincere efforts, Amba Mata manifested in front of her and gave a directive that Bharati Maiya should construct her temple. To fulfill this directive of Devi Ma, Bharati Maiya collected an amount of 1 rupee per person, constructed the Devi temple, and installed an idol of Amba Mata. Alongside the temple, a cowshed and a Veda Pathashala to accommodate 50 students was also constructed. In addition to this, several dispensaries and old people's homes for the aged and sick were constructed at various places. All this was done in accordance with the directive of the Divine Mother. Around the same time, something wondrous happened. A message written in Vibhuti appeared on a wall of the house of a Sai devotee who lived nearby. It read, "Study the life story of Bharati Maiya." Initially, Bharati Maiya did not believe this, but when she saw the constant flow of Vibhuti appearing on the wall, she bowed in reverence in front of Swami and installed a photograph of his in the shrine at her house. After this, she realized that a part of the Naivedyam which she offered every day used to disappear. It was a sign from Swami that he was accepting it. One day, the students of the Veda Pathashala expressed a desire to go for Swami's darshan. Accordingly, they all came to Prashanti Nilayam. Swami asked them to chant the Veda mantras. He appreciated their efforts, blessed them, and gifted them with clothes. He gave a darshan to Bharati Maiya in the form of Amba Mata, her desired deity. She totally surrendered to Swami and also expressed a desire. A large hospital was being constructed at Surat by the Jain community, and she aspired to construct a diagnostic center with modern facilities attached to it. Swami blessed her and guided her to travel to UK and USA. During her visit abroad, devotees of Swami residing there helped her to collect the desired amount within 2 weeks, and she was able to fulfill her aspiration. Srimati Bharati Maiya believes that all this was possible only due to Bhagavan Sri Sathya Sai Baba's grace, the one who fulfills all the good aspirations of his devotees. Om Sri Sathya Sai Natharpanamastu. Om Sri Sai Kalyana Gunaya Namaha. Salutations to Sri Sai, whose virtues are beneficial to humanity. Sant Dhyaneshwar says, "Shall I call these Saguna with a form, or Nirguna, formless? Whether Saguna or Nirguna, Govinda is one and the same." When the formless divinity assumes a form, he incarnates as God in human form. This Saguna Rupa of his comes to earth for the welfare of mankind. Bhagavan Sri Sathya Sai Baba has incarnated on earth for the same purpose and is constantly engaged in the welfare of mankind. Bhagavan Baba says, "I am not a Nayak, leader, but I am a Sevak, servitor. I am born to serve." And in accordance with this statement, he serves not only those who worship him, but serves all mankind. Swami says, "My life is my message," and right from childhood, the Kalyana Guna Bhagavan Baba has been translating his words into deeds. The little Satya was ever engaged in giving food and clothes to the needy. As Bala Satyanarayana, he started the Pandari Bhajan group and attracted not only the residents of Puttaparthi, but also the folk from the surrounding villages. Through this bhajan group, he inspired people to tread the path of devotion and also beckoned them to keep their homes, their surroundings, and their minds clean. He taught them that the pure vibrations that are emitted through Nama Sankirtan keep deadly diseases away. After the declaration of his avatarhood, he started monumental projects in the three spheres of education, healthcare, and drinking water supply to fulfill the promise given by him to his mother Ishwaramma. The entire world is acknowledging him and lauding these projects today. Anyone can avail of these benefits completely free of cost. Tasks on such a mammoth scale are possible only to God, who is Kalyana Gunakari, whose virtues are beneficial. In the earlier times, when the crowds of devotees were not so large, the bhajans at Prashanti Nilayam were held every morning and evening for a duration of 1 to 1.5 hours. After the bhajans, 3 aartis, Pavana Purusha Saisha, Om Jai Jagadisha Hare, and Kayo Karunanidhe were sung. After the aratis, the head priest of the temple used to hail in a loud voice, Bolo Bhagavan Sri Sathya Sai Baba Ji ki Jai! Bolo Puttaparthi Mahatma Sri Satchidananda Murti ki Jai! And all the devotees used to repeat Jai in a loud chorus. Later, after Swami's mission stepped up, the duration of bhajan was reduced, and Bhagavan Baba asked for only 1 aarti to be sung. A few years later, Swami told everyone that instead of the Jai after the aarti, everyone should say Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu thrice and end the session with Om Shanti Shanti Shantihi, meaning thereby, let all beings in all the 3 worlds be happy. Let us all attain peace. Swami has also said, whenever you sing to me with a pure heart and a sacred selfless thought, I always keep my gracious glance upon you. If a person has done a great sacrifice during his lifetime or any good deeds in his previous births, Swami especially showers his grace on him. Is it possible for anyone to survive without God's grace? Such benevolent thoughts can come only from the Kalyana Gunaya Bhagavan Baba, who constantly thinks about the welfare of mankind. Om Sri Sathya Sai Kalpadruma. Om Sri Sai Kalpadruma Namaha. Salutations to Sri Sai, who destroys our karmas to give us liberation from retribution in this life. Swami always lays emphasis on the fact that each one must fulfill his duty without expecting any rewards. One has to always suffer the consequences of good and bad karma collected over past births. Swami says that the Tyaga Rupa Karma, sacrifice, destroys the bondage of karma and frees us. This story dates back to the year 1935. There lived a couple in a village called Kikkeri in Mandya district of Karnataka, who were ardent devotees of Shirdi Sainath. They had one son. When this boy was about 12 to 13 years of age, both husband and wife passed away, and the boy was orphaned. Since there was no one to look after him, he left home and joined a group of wandering sadhu bairagis. He visited many places of pilgrimage along with them. While traveling in this manner, in 1953 he arrived at Puttaparthi. He read the Telugu letters inscribed on the arch of the main entrance, Bhagavan Sri Sathya Sai Baba Prashanti Nilayam, and felt attracted to the word Bhagavan. A thought crossed his mind that he should test the power of this Bhagavan. Having spent a lot of time with sadhus, he was now familiar with Tantric Vidya. But instead of progressing on the spiritual path, he had developed many vices in the company of the sadhus. The name of this young man was Sri B. Halgappa, and this was his first darshan of Bhagavan Baba. A few years after his first visit to Puttaparthi, Halgappa journeyed to the ashram of Swami Shivananda at Rishikesh. He met Swami Shraddhananda and spent some time in the ashram. During his stay, he heard about Sri Sathya Sai and his visit to Rishikesh. Swami Shraddhananda told him, Your future can become happy only with the blessings of Bhagavan Sri Sathya Sai Baba. Halgappa stayed at Rishikesh until Swami Shraddhananda attained Samadhi. Then he travelled southward and went to Puttaparthi. Once again he took Bhagavan Baba's darshan, but he felt that Baba completely ignored him. This was a new experience for him, as he felt that sadhus and sannyasis always attracted people and got attention. He went back confused and unsure. A few days later, when he heard that Swami was at Whitefield, he went there. This time, Swami did not disappoint him. Along with darshan, Swami also blessed him with sambhashan. Swami told him, instead of wandering aimlessly, go and find a job. Halgappa obeyed Swami's directive and found a job as a laborer in the sugar factory at Pandavapura. He started attending bhajan at a devotee's house in Mysore. Then one day, suddenly he lost his job. After that, an intense desire to visit Puttaparthi arose in him, and he left for the ashram. When he reached the railway crossing at Penukonda, he heard Swami calling out to him from a car which was waiting at the railway crossing. Halgappa was overjoyed. As he reached the car, Swami told him, "Go back home. Your job is now permanent." Saying so, Swami placed a 20-rupee note in his hand. Halgappa was ecstatic. He spent every rupee from it on enjoyment and returned to Pandavapura. On reaching home, he was told his job was now permanent, at daily wage of rupees 2. In those days, this was not a small amount, but for Halgappa's needs and vices, it was not enough. He also used to get the urge to travel to Puttaparthi often, so he was always short of funds. By and by, taking advantage of the crowds at Puttaparthi, he started stealing there. Once, when he had gone for Swami's darshan, Halgappa overstayed. The money was over, but he had a remedy for that. He stole a devotee's suitcase and hid it near the banyan tree on the hillside. The devotee made a big hue and cry about his suitcase being stolen. So Swami assured him, saying, "Your suitcase will be returned to you." Halgappa was standing among the devotees who were waiting for Swami's darshan. Sri Kasturi came to him and told him, "Go inside, Swami is waiting for you." When Halgappa went to Baba, he rebuked him harshly with strong words and told him to return the suitcase to the devotee. As Swami manifested Vibhuti for him, Halgappa thought that Swami would also give some money, but this time he did not do so. As he came out, Sri Kasturi gave him enough money for the railway fare to travel back home. Halgappa returned, but his troubles worsened. He got married and the expenses mounted. He could not go for Swami's darshan as and when he wanted. He had no option but to worship Swami's photograph at home and cry silently in his heart. Finally, after a long span of time, he went to Puttaparthi for Guru Purnima in 1963. On reaching there, he heard that Swami had suffered a paralytic stroke. Sri Kasturi told him, "Swami has taken somebody's illness upon himself." When Halgappa saw Swami, he wondered to himself, "Can one who is God be in such a condition?" Just then, Swami asked for some water to drink. He drank a sip and sprinkled some with his right hand on the affected parts of his body, and in a moment he was back to normal and stood up. He even started giving his divine discourse. He spoke elaborately on the 3 Sai incarnations. This incident had a deep impact on Halgappa's mind. He thought to himself, "If Swami is really God, tomorrow he will give me Pada Namaskar and blessing, and then I will give up all my vices." The next day, Halgappa's thought translated into reality. Happily, he went back to his village, but now he was a completely transformed man. In a few days, Vibhuti started falling from Swami's photograph in his house, and Amrit started oozing non-stop from a ring and a pendant of Swami's. Halgappa's home turned into a pilgrim center for devotees. Halgappa started an orphanage in his house and started looking after destitute children. Along with his own children, he provided education to all these destitutes and also inculcated good values in them. With sincere efforts in this direction, he set an example for others to follow. All this came about only because Swami destroyed the bondage of Halgappa's past karma and showered his grace on him. Om Sri Sathya Sai Kalpadruma. Om Sri Sai Sadhu Manasa Shobhitaya Namaha. Salutations to Sri Sai, who shines in the heart of good people. Bhagavan Baba is aware of each and every person in this world, and is also aware of their special qualities. So when a person comes in contact with him, Bhagavan Baba enhances his goodness, enlightens his conscience, and grants salvation. In 1962, Sri Madhavrao Dikshit from Mangalore came in contact with Dr. Gadia, who was a devotee of Sri Sathya Sai. When Dr. Gadia informed him that Sri Sathya Sai was a reincarnation of Shirdi Sai, Madhavrao accompanied him to Puttaparthi. Somehow, he was not ready to believe that Swami was Shirdi Sai Baba reborn. But when Swami narrated in detail the chain of incidents from Madhavrao's life during the times of the Shirdi Sai avatar, he fell at Swami's feet. Suddenly, Swami turned to Dr. Gadia and said, "Do you administer an injection of insulin to him for his diabetes every day?" Dr. Gadia replied, "Yes, Swami. He has very high diabetes, so he has to take a daily dose of 40 units of insulin." Swami told him, "From tomorrow, stop the insulin injections." He materialized vibhuti, which was brownish in color, and asked Madhavrao to eat it in front of him. On seeing this, Dr. Gadia was quite nervous because he had brought Madhavrao along with him and was worried that stopping insulin might prove to be fatal. Knowing his thoughts, Swami told him, "Gadia, you don't worry. Dikshit's end had drawn near, but Swami has increased his lifespan by 8 years. The reason for this is the 8 years he spent with me during the Shirdi time. Now he can eat as many sweets as he wants. I know he likes them." After a week, Madhavrao's blood sugar level was tested and found to be absolutely normal. Then Swami asked him, "In the next 8 years, what do you wish to do?" Dikshit replied, "I would like to serve you as a gatekeeper." Swami entrusted him with the responsibility of looking after the Brindavan ashram. He was given a house right next to the main gate. He served Sai for exactly 8 years, and finally this noble soul merged in Sai. Om Shri Sathya Sai Kalpadruma. Om Sri Sai Sarvamata Sammataya Namaha. Salutations to Sri Sai, who accepts all faiths as equally true. Bhagavan Baba says, "There is only one caste, the caste of humanity. There is only one religion, the religion of love. There is only one language, the language of the heart. There is only one God, and He is omnipresent." Bhagavan Baba says, "Don't give any importance to difference of opinion about language, religion, caste, or country. Develop the feeling that all are children of God. Always bear the thought that there is only one God." Swami has always been teaching us that all religions are one, and the symbol of the Sri Sathya Sai Seva organization has symbols of the 5 main religions inscribed on it. This is visible on the Sarva Dharma Stupa at Prashanti Nilayam. Are you aware of how and when this stupa came into existence? 23rd November 1975 was the 50th birthday of Bhagavan Baba. It was the 50th year of the advent of the avatar on earth for the welfare of humanity. To commemorate this occasion, it was decided that a Sarva Dharma Stupa would be constructed. According to Swami's instruction, a plan was drawn up, and the responsibility was entrusted to Brigadier Bose. He was given a time of only 60 days to complete the task, but it was also backed by Swami's boundless grace. It was Swami's wish that the work be carried out only by the devotees, and should not be entrusted to any contractor or laborers. It was an arduous task to carry out this work without the help of skilled laborers, but it was made possible because of Swami's sankalpa. The first stage of laying the concrete was carried out by the divine lotus hands of Bhagavan Baba himself. All the officer bearers of the central office took part. The Sevadal volunteers and the college students also got the opportunity to participate in this project. And what seemed impossible at first became possible through Bhagavan Baba's grace. When the work was in progress, one night there were heavy rains. Brigadier Bose was very worried that all the work done so far would go waste due to the rains. Next morning he visited the site and to his surprise found that it had rained all over, barring the area around the site. How God has control over nature! During the inaugural ceremony, the Balvikas children sang several sacred verses from the Vedas, Zend Avesta, Tripitak, Bible and the Quran. While inaugurating the 50 feet tall pillar bearing a lotus on top, Swami explained that the 5 petals of the lotus symbolize the 5 major religions of the world. He said, Ishvara Sarva Bhutanam. God exists in all things, in all living beings. If this truth is realized, all differences will be cast aside. Self-realization will dawn. Everything will be seen as divine. To all the devotees belonging to different faiths and parts of the world who had gathered there, Swami said, Thousands of devotees from different castes, creeds, and religions have come here from all over the world. They are all inspired by one goal. Love brings everyone together. It broadens the heart. All religions teach one and the same thing, love. So, no one should give any undue importance to personal differences, hate, selfishness, etc., and tread the spiritual path with faith and courage. Om Sri Sathya Sai Kalpadruma. Om Sri Sai Sadhu Manasa Parishodhakaya Namaha. Salutations to Sri Sai, who is the cleanser of the minds of all aspirants. This is a story from the year 1962. At this time, Sri P. K. Sawant, a generous and pious gentleman, was the agriculture minister of Maharashtra. He had also been appointed as the honorable president of the Sri Sai Sansthan. When he heard that Sri Sai's reincarnation is now well known as Sri Sathya Sai, he got in touch with a devotee of Sri Sathya Sai named Sri Lakshmidas Bhatia. Through him, Sri Sawant met Sri Madhav Dikshit, the nephew of late Sri Kaka Sahib Dikshit and Dr. Gadhia. From all these people he heard about Swami's Leelas and his life story. Once, Sri Sawant went to Sri Bhatia's house to get some information on Prashanti Nilayam. He saw a long queue outside the door. Out of curiosity, he inquired about it. He was told that Sri Bhatia's old and trusted servant suddenly took ill, and with no medical help available, had been wincing in severe pain. At this juncture, Dr. Gadhia was inspired to give him vibhuti. He took a pinch of vibhuti, invoked Swami, and put it in the servant's mouth. The servant got completely cured within half an hour. When the news spread, all the servants from the building gathered there to get some vibhuti. Just then Sri Sawant reached there. He started insisting that Dr. Gadhia should put some vibhuti in his mouth too. Initially, Dr. Gadhia was hesitant. He told Sri Sawant, I will give it in your hand, you eat it yourself. But Sri Sawant would not agree, and finally Dr. Gadhia had to put the vibhuti in his mouth. This moment was captured by a photographer on his camera. He was a part of the crowd. Now, Dr. Gadhia was really worried. He thought that if someone showed this photograph to Swami, he might not be pleased. However, when the photograph was given to Dr. Gadhia, he was wonderstruck. The picture showed him putting the vibhuti in Sri Sawant's mouth, and in the background one could see a beam of light from Swami's photo on the wall, reaching Mr. Sawant. When the photograph was shown to Swami, he said, When Dr. Gadhia was putting the vibhuti in Sawant's mouth, he thought to himself, will this vibhuti be as effective as the Udi from Shirdi? So I had to immediately clear his doubt. Swami did this Leela only to purify a sadhak's heart. Later, he appointed Sri Sawant as a trust member of the Sri Sathya Sai Trust and the president of the Prashanti Vidwan Mahasabha. We are so fortunate that God has taken a human form and is moving amongst us, taking utmost care that each and every one of us transforms into good human beings. Om Shri Sathya Sai Natharpanamastu. Om Shri Sai Sadhakanugraha Vadavriksha Pratishtapakaya Namaha. Salutations to Sri Sai, who has planted a banyan tree as a boon to the sadhakas. A long time ago, Swami was once explaining to his devotees about meditation. He said, when you sit in meditation, bring his rupa, form, in front of your eyes. Along with this, chant any of his names you desire most. If you do this japa alone, without seeing his rupa, form, who will respond to you? Don't feel that I will get angry if you do not choose me as a dhyana rupa for meditation. You have the freedom to choose the name and the form you desire most. All names and forms are mine. After seeing me or hearing me, there is no need for you to change from the earlier name or form that you are accustomed to. Swami did not stop at this. In April 1959, he was giving a discourse on the sands of the Chitravati and speaking on Buddha, the Bodhi Vriksha, and a suitable place for tapasya. Suddenly he ran his hands through the sands and materialized a copper plate, about 10 to 15 inches long. There were some known and unknown syllables inscribed on it. Swami showed it to all those who were present there and said, if this copper plate is buried under a tree and the sadhak meditates on that spot, he will progress much faster. On 29th June 1959, Swami buried this copper plate in the Tapovanam and planted a banyan tree on that spot. While doing so, he said, those yogis who have attained a specific stage in meditation will be mysteriously attracted to this spot. What could have been the reason for Swami to select a banyan tree as the dhyana vriksha, tree for meditation? Lord Shiva in his Guru Rupa is seen seated under a banyan tree, imparting knowledge to his disciples. Mahavishnu rests in Yoga Nidra on a banyan leaf during the Pralaya, the devastating flood, and protects all the three worlds. Similarly, our Sanatana Dharma, which is a combination of several philosophies, can be compared to a banyan tree. The banyan tree has shoots emerging from its branches, which, on reaching the ground, go below as the roots, thus making this tree immortal. To date, millions of sadhaks have meditated under banyan trees and have experienced yogic bliss. This is a story from the time after the Dhyana Vriksha was planted. Shirdi Amma, Peddabottu, was once going to the Dhyana Vriksha for meditation. She saw Sri Raja Reddy returning from the Tapovan. He asked Peddabottu, have you taken Swami's permission to meditate under the banyan tree? Peddabottu told him that she had not taken permission, but she would do so. Once, Peddabottu was meditating under Dhyana Vriksha, around the Brahma Muhurtam time. While in a deep meditative state, suddenly her eyes opened, and she saw an unbelievable wondrous sight. She saw several celestial nymphs moving in the sky above the Prashanti Mandir. Beautiful in appearance, richly adorned with flowers, they were floating towards the east. She could clearly hear melodious musical sounds. On seeing them, Peddabottu guessed that they were divine residents of the Devaloka who had come down for Swami's darshan. Since she was a yogini, she was therefore blessed with such a soul-stirring experience while meditating under the holy banyan tree. Om Shri Sathya Sai Kalpadruma. Om Shri Sai Sakala Samshaya Haraya Namaha. Salutations to Sri Sai, who removes all doubts in us and strengthens our faith. In the 4th chapter and the 40th verse of the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord declares, Agnyascha Shraddadhanascha Sanshayatma Vinashyati Nayam Lokosti Naparo Na Sukham Sanshayatmanaha. The ignorant, the faithless, the doubting self goes to destruction. There is neither this world nor the other, nor happiness for the doubter. Bhagavan Shri Krishna has thus explained in the Gita what happens to a person who always doubts. We are extremely fortunate to have Lord Sai Krishna among us today, who is constantly working towards removing our doubting tendencies. This is a story from 1959. A young man had come to Prashanti Nilayam from Madras, now Chennai, for Swami's Darshan. Swami called him to the first floor of the Prashanti Mandir. It was a moonlit night. In those days, sometimes Swami used to enjoy having moonlight dinners with his devotees. This program was held on the terrace above the Prashanti Mandir. Earlier, before the expansion of the mandir, there was a terrace above the first floor. This young man was extremely happy for being a recipient of such grace. When he went to meet Swami, he asked the young man to touch him. The youth found Swami's body temperature very high, as in fever. Someone got a thermometer and checked the temperature. It was 104 degrees Fahrenheit. Everyone realized that Swami had high fever and they were very concerned. But Swami was joyous as usual. He told this young man, "In your house in Madras, your mother was going to fall prey to a fire. While saving her, my body temperature rose high. That is all." After 5 minutes, Swami asked for his body temperature to be checked again, and this time it was 96 degrees Fahrenheit. Everyone was relieved, and the dinner program went off smoothly. But the young man could not sleep all night. As he tossed and turned, only one thought troubled him. It was about his mother. How is she? Has she really suffered burns? Did Swami really go to Madras to save her? Is this true, or is he making up a story? So on and so forth. His mind was engulfed in doubts. Next morning he went to the post office and booked a trunk call to Madras. In those days, telecommunication was not as efficient as today. When his mother came on the line, he narrated the earlier night's incident to her. After hearing him out, she could not control her emotions. She sobbed as she told him, "Yesterday, while I was doing puja in the shrine at home, my sari caught fire from the flame of the burning oil lamp. I frantically invoked Swami, and within a few moments, miraculously the fire was put out." She further asked her son, "How is Swami? I hope his hands did not suffer burns while saving me?" After hearing this from his mother, the young man felt ashamed for having doubted Swami. He returned to the ashram with an overpowering feeling of guilt. As he reached the mandir, he saw Swami waiting outside the door. Swami asked him, "What did your mother say? Look here, see my hands. They did not get burnt at all. Only my body temperature rose high. That is all." The young man's doubts had been removed completely, and he bowed down in reverence and touched Swami's feet. Swami smiled gently and patted him on his back. Om Shri Sathya Sai Kalpadruma. Om Shri Sai Kalpadruma Namaha. Salutations to Sri Sai, who gives us the essence of all knowledge. One summer, Swami was in Kodaikanal. A few students, teachers, and devotees accompanied him. One morning, Swami told all of them, "Whoever answers my questions correctly, I will reward him with a special gift." On hearing this, everyone, especially the students, got very excited. Swami then asked, Who am I? Most of the students answered loudly in one voice, God. Swami replied, not correct. One student, Shiva Shakti Swarupa? Swami, not correct. Second student, Shri Krishna has incarnated again. Swami laughed and said, not correct. Another student said, Sarva Devata Swarupa. Swami once again replied, not correct. Finally, everyone told him, Swami, please tell us who you are. Swami answered, I am I. Initially, everyone burst out into laughter, but as Swami started explaining in a serious tone, there was pin-drop silence. Swami explained, I is the basis of everything. When you say I am this or I am that, a feeling of Dvaita, duality, is expressed. I am I expresses Advaita, non-duality. I am recognized by many names, such as God, Atma, Brahman, Shri Krishna, Shri Rama, Shiva, Allah, and Jesus. But this I-ness of Advaita is the ultimate truth. Swami's teachings reflect the essence of all knowledge. One of the many devotees of Swami is the world-famous cricketer Sri Sunil Gabaskar. Since 1970, the Gavaskar family has been devotees of Baba, but Sunil visited Prashanti Nilayam for the first time only in 1982. After blessing him with an interview, Swami took him to the boys' hostel. All the students had gathered in the prayer hall. Swami made Sunil sit next to him and said to him, Today is Bakri Eid, so tell the students about the importance of this festival. Sunil replied, Swami, I have no knowledge about Islam, Quran, or Bakri Eid. How can I speak about it? Swami told him, You just stand in front of the mic. Everything will be all right. Sunil obeyed Swami's directive, and he spoke on Islam and Bakri Eid for about 10 to 12 minutes. His speech drew a loud applause. As he returned to his seat, Swami said, Didn't I tell you that you will be able to speak? Sunil only folded his hand in reverence to Swami. Today, after so many years, Sunil, in wonder, says, I really don't remember anything that I spoke. It was Swami who spoke through me. Om Shri Sathya Sai Kalpadruma. Om Sri Sai Yogeshwaraya Namaha. Salutations to Sri Sai, who is the Lord of all yogis. On 23rd November 1926, the Shiva Shakti Swarupa, Bhagavan Sri Sathya Sai Baba, incarnated on earth. On the very next day, Yogi Aurobindo announced in his ashram, Yesterday, Lord Shri Krishna himself has incarnated on earth in human form. He will lead all of humanity on the righteous path. In this mortal land, this power will light the Atma Jyoti in each and every heart. His voice will reach the ears of millions. Today, God has incarnated on earth. Thousands of years ago, the sages Bhrigu, Agastya, Vashishta, and Shukamuni have written in great detail about Bhagavan Baba's advent in their respective Nadi Granthas. In 1957, after the conclusion of the Divine Life Convention held at Venkatgiri, Swami Sachidananda declared, Sri Sathya Sai Baba is omnipresent, omnipotent, and omniscient. He is the Atma that dwells in every living being, and is the embodiment of truth, awareness, and bliss. Swami Shivananda of Rishikesh and Sri Mahapurush Ji have accepted the supremacy of Bhagavan Baba. Swami Chinmayananda, Swami Amritananda, who is the disciple of Ramana Maharishi, Sri Godavari Mata of Sakori, and Sri Devitai have all expressed reverential feelings about Bhagavan Baba's greatness and divinity. The great Yogiraj Param Pujya Gagan Giri Maharaj has spoken about Yogeshwar Sri Sathya Sai Baba as follows. In our country, from the Himalayas to Kanyakumari, there are many secret places where many sadhus and yogis have been engrossed in severe penance over thousands of years. Even if you collect all their yoga samarthya, spiritual yogic power, it will pale in front of Sri Sathya Sai's effulgence. Devara Baba, whose physical age is over 450 years, resides at Tirtharaj Prayag. This is the sacred spot where all the three sacred rivers, Ganga, Yamuna, and Saraswati merge. He has expressed, Bhagavan Baba is Lord Shiva himself. He is Parabrahma Swarupa. The well-known author of the world-famous book Yogi Kathamrut, Swami Paramahamsa Yogananda has said, God has incarnated on earth in South India and is well known by the name Sai Baba. In the same Yogi Kathamrut, there is a reference to Mahavatar Baba or Babaji, whose age is over 1,000 years. He says, I am familiar with all three Shiva incarnations. I have had darshan of Shirdi Sai, and I take darshan of the present incarnation Sri Sathya Sai. I also know about the future Prema Sai avatar. In this way, millions of devotees from all over the world are fortunate to be blessed with the darshan of Yogeshwar Bhagavan Sri Sathya Sai Baba, who is the Lord of all yogis. Om Shri Sathya Sai Natharpanamastu. Om Shri Sai Yogendra Vanditaya Namaha. Salutations to Sri Sai, who is revered by all the masters of yoga. When Param Pujya Asaram Bapuji went for Bhagavan Baba's darshan in September 2004, he said, Bhagavan Baba is Lord Shri Krishna himself. Many known and unknown yogis have uttered similar words about Swami. Bhagavan Baba says, the celestial beings, Devatas from Devaloka, are also yearning for my darshan. An incident which illustrates the truth of this statement was witnessed by one of Swami's ardent devotees, Sri Raja Reddy. This happened quite a few years ago. It was Vaikuntha Ekadashi, a day of exceptional sanctity. It is described as a glorious day when Lord Sri Mahavishnu gives darshan to his devotees at the northern gate of his celestial abode Vaikuntha. On that night, Sri Raja Reddy was sleeping on the veranda on the first floor of Prashanti Nilayam. At about midnight he woke up. He noticed through the slightly opened door of Swami's room an effulgent illumination. Being curious, he drew closer and peeped through the gap between the doors. He was astonished at what he saw. Several celestial beings were taking turns to bow down in reverence at the divine lotus feet of Bhagavan Baba. Swami was reclining on the bed and accepting their homage. 7 effulgent masses of bright light were seen around Swami's bed. The vision startled Raja Reddy. He quickly closed the door and went back to his bed on the veranda, totally stunned. Next day, he inquired with Swami about this heavenly experience. Swami explained, they are all celestial beings, Devatas. They had come for my darshan. What you saw as the 7 masses of bright light were the Saptarishis, the 7 great rishis. As I protect you with my blessings, you are still alive. Otherwise, the moment you set your eyes on that scene, you would have been reduced to ashes. Just this one incident alone is enough to reveal Swami's glory. Many great personalities representing different faiths honor Swami. In 1968, there was a Peer named Haji Baba who lived in Nairobi. At that time, he was 92 years old. He was known to have performed many miracles, such as controlling the 5 elements, healing the sick from incurable disease, etc. He used to say, my area of work is limited to Karachi, East Africa, United Kingdom, and few other countries, but Bhagavan Sri Sathya Sai Baba works for the entire world. There are no limits to his work. When he said this about Swami, it was the 42nd year of Baba's advent. Today, in the 82nd year of the advent of this Yuga avatar, we find that every word spoken by the Peer has come true. Om Shri Sathya Sai Kalpadruma. Om Sri Sai Karaya Namaha. Salutations to Sri Sai, who grants all auspiciousness and prosperity. Swami says that he has incarnated on earth only for the upliftment of all mankind, and true to his word, he is constantly engaged in overseeing that each one's life is sanctified and filled with auspiciousness. The story of the world-famous vocalist Srimati M.S. Subbulakshmi tells us about the Mangala Karaya Rupa of Bhagavan Baba. Srimati Subbulakshmi was well known all over the world as Sushwar Lakshmi. Right from childhood, she had offered her devotion to God through Nad Upasana, and she had accepted this path to lead her to liberation. The readers will be surprised to know that this well-known singer's life was full of calamity and misfortunes. Maybe this was one reason for her music being full of bhakti rasa. When she embarked upon her career, she had enacted the role of Mirabai in a movie. Her melodious voice and gifted acting abilities were lauded in this role. Then onwards, until her last moment, she only sang devotional songs. She donated all her earnings to charitable institutions and led a saintly life. Srimati M.S. Subbulakshmi was blessed with Swami's first darshan in 1975 at Vrindavan. With tearful eyes and intense devotion, she bowed down in reverence and placed her head on Swami's lotus feet. Swami said to her, "Come, since the past 10 years you have been waiting for this Padanamaskar. Take it now." Why did Swami say this? 10 years prior to this, Srimati Subbulakshmi heard about Swami's divinity from one of her friends. But her husband, Sri Sadashivam, was not ready to believe in Swami. Just like other noble ladies, she did not go anywhere without her husband's permission or his company. She, therefore, requested this friend to offer pranams to Swami on her behalf and bring prasadam for her. When her friend told this to Swami, he said, "I know, her husband Sadashivam is not ready to come here, but one day he will come." Saying so, he gave prasadam for Subbulakshmi. As per Swami's words, that day dawned after 10 long years, and finally Srimati Subbulakshmi and her husband arrived for Swami's darshan. During this time, she was passing through the most arduous phase of her life. Swami gave her Padnamaskar and also blessed her with an interview. After coming out of the interview room, Srimati Subbulakshmi said, "I have been privileged to receive the bliss of Swami's darshan in person only as a reward of my penance of several years." The couple were recipients of this bliss several times at Prashanti Nilayam, Brindavan, and Sundaram. Subbulakshmi recorded several bhajans of Swami in her golden voice. She also lent her voice to record a lyric, Sairam Chiluka, which was composed by Swami himself. Swami showered his boundless grace on her several times. In 1982, her daughter was seriously ill. At that time, Swami kept both of them in his divine presence at Brindavan for over a month. When Subbulakshmi was asked the question, "How did you become a devotee of Swami?" With humility she replied, "People speak about Swami's glory and how he rescues his devotees from calamities. But as far as I am concerned, his biggest miracle is the one when he casts his loving and compassionate glance on you, and you experience a peace which is indescribable. There is a sense of security one experiences in his presence. And besides that, one realizes the truth through his words, each of which is a sacred mantra. I feel that during Kali Yuga, Lord Sri Krishna has incarnated on earth to protect the people. We are really fortunate to be living during the time when the ever-compassionate Swami has incarnated on earth." Once, a devotee of Swami was traveling from Chennai to Puttaparthi. He asked Subbulakshmi, "Amma, Tomorrow I am leaving for Prashanti Nilayam. Do you want to send a message for Swami? Choked with emotion, she folded her hands before Swami's photographs in her house and said, "What can I say to God? Before any desire enters my heart, He fulfills it." A few days later, she merged with God. Bhagavan Baba blessed Subbalakshmi and filled her life with auspiciousness. May He also make our lives auspicious, is our heartfelt prayer at the lotus feet of Mangalakaraya Swami. Om Shri Sathya Sai Kalpadruma. Om Sri Sai Siddhi Pradaya Namaha. Salutations to Sri Sai, who grants all accomplishments and skills. The Dhyana Vriksha meditation tree was planted by Purna Brahma Swami so that the devotees could attain Purna Avastha, perfection. Along with this, he also planted the seed of the Jnana Vriksha, tree of knowledge. Today, this has grown into a huge tree. Through value education, great emphasis is laid on the development of character in students who are also accomplished in various types of knowledge and skills. These educational institutes impart not only the knowledge related to padartha, material world, but also parartha, spirituality. Swami constantly guides the students so that instead of just gaining knowledge about the material world, they gain all-around knowledge and beam it to the rest of the world. Swami is especially particular about those serving in the medical institutes, that they perform their duties to the best of their ability. The ever-increasing number of patients who come for treatment at the super specialty hospital are a proof of this. Every year on 11th January, the sports day celebrated in Puttaparthi is the best example of the expertise and physical skills the students have perfected. The convocation ceremony held on 22nd November every year reflects upon the academic all-round achievements of the students. All this has been made possible only because the knowledge imparted here is not for mere living, but for life. This kind of perfection in skills and knowledge is not just achieved by students through the Sri Sathya Sai Institutes, but even devotees who have been recipients of Bhagavan Baba's grace are known to have attained it. Scientists, doctors, economists, lawyers, educationists, artistes, and sportsmen are all included in this. To cite an example, the world-famous vocalist Begum Parveen Sultana says, "All the credit for my presentation on stage goes to Swami. It is only by his grace that I am able to sing so well. He taught me how to present my talent on stage, and guided me even better than my own parents." Another recipient of Swami's grace is the world-famous cricketer Mr. Sunil Gabaskar. Sunil is well known for several world records and a sound batting technique. Once he was asked, "Can you narrate any one incident where you achieved success due to Swami's grace?" "Pat," came the reply. "If Swami were not with me, I would not have been able to score a single run. I have no doubt about this." Om Shri Sathya Sai Kalpadruma. Om Sri Sai Nivarine Namaha. Salutations to Sri Sai, who removes calamities. Whenever a devotee suffers a calamity, God rushes to his rescue. Wherever he may be, the Lord keeps a close watch on him. Whatever calamities a devotee may have to suffer due to his own past karma, God gives him the strength to overcome them. The Lord, God, steers the devotee out of the adverse conditions and leads him to safety. Some years ago, with Swami's permission, a few devotees started the Sri Sai Center in London. Some of the residents who were not devotees were very impressed by the work done through this center. A few spiritual organizations and churches also expressed keen interest to know more about the work, and lectures were organized in different venues to this effect. Accordingly, Dr. Gadhia, an ardent devotee of Swami, started visiting these venues to give information about Bhagavan Baba, his life, the mission, and experiences of devotees. The lectures drew crowds consisting of many eager and studious people. One such program was organized by a church. As Dr. Gadhia was walking out after his lecture, a British lady came up to him and said, "My husband wishes to see you. Will you please come and meet him?" The doctor happily gave his consent, and both of them went to meet the gentleman in question. On seeing Dr. Gadhia, the lady's husband was very happy. He said, "Doctor, you were my brother in my past life, you are one in this present life, and you will be my brother in future life too. Do you agree with this?" On hearing this, Dr. Gadhia replied, "You are 100% right. If we go backward through our lineage, we will realize that ultimately we are all children of Adam and Eve, or children of one God, generator, operator, and destroyer. In that sense, we all are brothers." The gentleman was ecstatic with Dr. Gadhia's reply. Choked with emotion, he hugged Dr. Gadhia warmly. The doctor too responded to his love with a tight hug, and suddenly something terrible happened. The man began to feel uneasy and started gasping for breath. He squealed, "My pacemaker is broken! Call for an ambulance! Hurry up!" Soon his face started turning blue. By now Dr. Gadhia was petrified. He did not know that the gentleman's heart was working with the help of a pacemaker. This was a big calamity. He knew right away that only the Appanivarine Swami could rescue them. So he invoked Swami with all his heart, and clearly heard his words from within. "Put vibhuti in the mouth, and draw an Om with vibhuti on his heart." Dr. Gadhia instantly obeyed Swami's directive, and put a pinch of vibhuti in the patient's mouth, and also drew an Om with vibhuti in the heart region with his fingers. Within minutes, the patient miraculously recovered. His heart started beating normally, and that too without a pacemaker. The color of his face returned to normal, and he shouted, "Sai Baba has restarted my heart. I had only heard about his glory. Today I have experienced it." Needless to say that this person is now an ardent devotee of Swami. As for Dr. Gadhia, he was greatly relieved, and thanked Baba again and again for having rescued both of them from a calamity. Om Sri Sathya Sai Kalpadruma. Om Sri Sai Artiharaya Namaha. Salutations to Sri Sai, who takes away physical and mental agony. As a result of their past karma, when devotees undergo physical or mental agony, God destroys their sorrow and ultimately leads them to happiness. Bhagavan Baba constantly ensures that his devotees do not suffer. The Rayalaseema region, being a drought-stricken area, the people there had to undergo the physical strain of walking miles in order to get drinking water daily. Naturally, they were in misery. To free them from their plight, Swami started the Sri Sathya Sai drinking water project and quenched their thirst. This was just the first step. To free the people of Chennai from the physical and mental agony caused due to the acute shortage of drinking water, Swami started another mammoth water project there. Many such water projects are taking shape in different parts of the country, and lakhs of people are now grateful to Sai Mata. To free the underprivileged of this country from physical and mental agony, this universal mother started the Ishwaramma Mahila Welfare Project on 19th November 2004. In the following year, it came to be called Ishwaramma Mahila Welfare Trust. This trust undertakes health projects for all the needy and underprivileged women and children. Another project named Ishwaramma Self-Help Plan was launched to help the deprived women to stand on their own feet. Through all these projects, the distressed and needy women have been rescued from their misery. The following story tells us about how Swami freed a person of his mental agony. On 31st March 1973, Bhagavan Baba paid a visit to a college in Rajkot. From there, he left for the Jamnagar Palace. A motorcade was following him. The Rajmata was also traveling in one of the cars. Swami's car stopped at the main entrance of the palace. As he got out of the car and started walking ahead, something untoward happened. An Arab by the name Sheikh, who was a security guard, came forward and said to Swami, "Babaji, remove your footwear." Swami smiled at him, removed his slippers, and walked on. It was a hot afternoon, and Swami walked bare feet with the members of the welcome committee to accept the guard of honor. When the Rajmata got off from her car, she heard about this incident. Appalled, and holding his slippers in her hands, she hurriedly ran towards Swami. But by then he had already gone ahead, walking bare feet on the hot sands, to accept the guard of honor. Generally, Swami never wears footwear on his divine lotus feet. But since the weather conditions in this area were severely hot, someone had requested him to do so. When Baba returned to the palace, he saw the Rajmata scolding Sheikh in harsh words. Sheikh sorrowfully hung his head down, with tears in his eyes. As soon as he saw Baba, he came forward to apologize. At that time, Swami said to the Rajmata, "It is not his fault. You had asked him to ensure that everyone removes their footwear. You did not tell him that I should be excluded. In fact, I appreciate his honesty and sense of duty." Saying this, Swami lovingly patted Sheikh on his back. The next moment, he materialized a greenish-gray talisman of about 1 inch in size. It had the letters from the Holy Quran inscribed on it. Swami gave the talisman to Sheikh, and in a moment his mental agony was changed into joy. May we all be freed from our mental and physical sorrow through Swami's grace. This is our heartfelt prayer at his divine lotus feet. Om Sri Sathya Sai Kalpadruma. Om Sri Sai Shantamurtaye Namaha. Salutations to Sri Sai, who is the personification of peace. When Shantamurti Swami was asked a question, "During the Shirdi incarnation, you lost your temper easily, but now you are an embodiment of peace. How come?" Swami replied, "When a mother is cooking and her child comes in the way, she scolds him. But while feeding the same child, she never loses her temper." In the sacred text named Brahmanadi, which was written a few thousand years ago, there is a significant mention about Sri Sathya Sai avatar. It says, "Sri Satyanarayana may seem like an ordinary human being, but he will be the Shiva Shakti incarnate and an incarnation of Shri Sai. Peaceful by nature, this divine being will reside in the Parthi village on the banks of Chitravati, in an abode of peace." Today, we are all experiencing the truth of that prediction. The abode of peace described here is Prashanti Nilayam. Today, devotees from all over the world throng here to attain peace. As a young child, Satya had to stay away from home to pursue education. His paternal aunt tortured him physically in many ways, but he did not hold this against her. In fact, when this same aunt became an invalid due to old age, Swami had her brought over to Prashanti Nilayam, provided her a helper, and looked after her lovingly. Once, as a small child, when Swami was sitting on a chair, a relative of his scornfully told him, "Are you deserving to sit in a chair?" Bala Satya got off from the chair and calmly said, "One day I shall sit on a golden throne." And today, we have all witnessed that. Swami, of course, is not keen about all this, but he allows it only to make his devotees happy. Otherwise, what Swami really likes is the devotee's pure and sacred heart. This is the throne he likes to be seated upon. Love all, serve all is the message given by Shantamurti Sai to the entire world. We can hear his footprints only in the depths of silence, so all of us must strive to be peaceful and follow his philosophy of Satya Dharma Shanti Prema, to become a part of his divine mission. Om Sri Sathya Sai Kalpadruma. Om Sri Sai Sulabha Prasannaya Namaha. Salutations to Sri Sai, who is easy to please. Bhagavan Baba is Shiva Shakti Swarupa. Lord Shiva is known as Bhole Bhandari, and Mother Parvati is the ever-compassionate one. When these two have merged as one Sai, he becomes our beloved father, mother, brother, and friend. He is ever compassionate and easily pleased by his devotees. Here is an amusing story narrated by Bhagavan Baba himself. Once, Shiva and Parvati were roaming in the sky. They heard the bewailing of a person. The compassionate Mother Parvati looked below and saw a man hanging from a tree on the edge of a hill. As the branch was about to break, he was bewailing. Mother Parvati said to Lord Shiva, "O Bhole Bhandari, I feel that you should save this man." Lord Shankara replied, "You are the universal mother. Why don't you save him?" Shiva then suggested to her, "When the branch breaks, if the man calls out Appa, I will save him, and if he calls out Amma, you should save him." In a moment the branch broke, and while falling, the man shouted aloud, "Ayyeyo!" remembering neither Appa or Amma. While crossing this turbulent sea of life, we all have to encounter difficulties. For overcoming them, Swami has given us the easiest way. He says that amongst the 9 forms of devotion, the best one for Kali Yuga is Smaranam. One should constantly chant the name of God. This does not have any limitations of place or time. If anyone keeps his form in front of his eyes and chants his name incessantly with one-pointed devotion, the person is easily able to please God and can weather any calamity. Swami says, God exists in each and every being in this animate and inanimate world. Realize this truth and serve him. This is the only way to please God and attain him. Om Sri Sathya Sai Kalpadruma. Om Sri Sai Bhagavan Sri Sathya Sai Babaya Namaha. My humble salutations to Lord Sri Sathya Sai Baba. Bhagavan Baba says, Bhagavan means the creator, the nourisher, and the one who enlightens the entire world. Bhagavan also means the one who has the 6 qualities of Aishwarya, wealth, Dharma, righteousness, Yashas, success, Shri, respect, Jnana, knowledge, and Vairagya, detachment. Bharat is the sacred land of yogis, saints, religious souls, and the land of sacrifice. Avatars have periodically taken birth here in answer to the earnest prayers of yogis, spiritual aspirants, saints, and devotees, who constantly yearn for divine proximity. God, the ever-compassionate and gracious, takes human form and moves amongst his devotees to grant them bliss. The reason why the Lord God chooses the land of Bharat for his advent is Bha, bhava, emotion, Ra, raga, music, Ta, tal, rhythm. Bharat symbolizes all these 3. This is the land where God's glory is constantly sung with bhava, raga, and tal. Bharat is also known as Hindu Desh. Hinsa, violence, duratva, away from. This is the land which stays away from violence. This is why the Lord God has chosen Bharat as the place for his advent. We are extremely fortunate that in response to our heartfelt prayers, God has incarnated in India as Bhagavan Sri Sathya Sai Baba. Born in the Bharadwaj tradition, Ratnakar lineage, and Raju family, Bhagavan Baba is the refuge of millions from all over the world. Prior to his birth, he had given several hints about his advent through many miracles. Since his birth, the Anandarupa Bhagavan Baba has only granted Ananda to all. Although he is the Lord God himself, instead of a Nayak, leader, he has chosen the role of a Sevak, servitor. He constantly tells us, "My life is my message," and exhorts us to follow his life. He loves all and expects only love in return. Right since his childhood, he has blessed many devotees by giving them darshan of and as their desired deity. To some, he has also granted the Vishwarupa darshan. Today, people from many countries the world over worship Bhagavan Baba. While taking forward his mission, he clearly tells us, "I have not come to establish a new religion. Everyone should abide by their own faith and follow the path of Satya, Dharma, Shanti, Prema, and Ahimsa to attain divinity. I have taken birth for the upliftment of all mankind." During the previous divine incarnations, it was very difficult for any but a few devotees to attain proximity to them. Besides, humanity realized the importance of these incarnations and their divine mission only after they left the earthly plane. We are extremely fortunate that it is possible for all of us to attain close proximity to the present incarnation, Bhagavan Sri Sathya Sai Baba, during his lifetime. Swami always tells us, "Do not have blind faith in me. Come, examine, experience, and then have faith in me." May all of us develop in our hearts a firm, unshakable faith in Bhagavan Baba. We pray at his divine lotus feet to grant us the good fortune to rest in the shade of blessings of Sri Sathya Sai Kalpadruma. Om Sri Sathya Sai Natharpanamastu.